The Honourable Paul Goldsmith.
Mr Speaker, my pleasure to speak on, as part of the government's response to the Prime Minister's statement at the start of this parliamentary year. And what a great summer it's been in this wonderful country in which we live in, with the sun shining and so much optimism as we go out and about and talk to people around the country. Mr Speaker, one of the first things I did politically for the year was going to Ratana Pa with the Prime Minister to support the Prime Minister there, and going on to the marae and hearing the speeches. And I have to say, one of the things that surprised me was the questions, well, what's in it for Maori for the TPP? What's all this TPP about, and what's in it for Maori? And I thought the answer to that is pretty obvious. Most Maori, like most New Zealanders, want access to a job when they grow, when they leave school, access to get and earn a good income for them and their family, and to be part of a country that can afford the best quality healthcare and education, and to afford a living standard that is good for them and their family. And that's why this government continues to focus on doing the basics well. And the basics are about providing that strong, stable and sensible and economically sustainable environment, which is what a government can deliver. And if we do that over an extended period, which we have done in this government for the last 7 years, then that leads to higher levels of confidence, as we see in every review of consumer and business confidence that comes through, and that confidence that leads to investment, and it's investment that leads to the jobs that employ young Maori and young New Zealanders from all around this country. And one of the problems that we've had in New Zealand, and we go back when I grew up, we often heard that New Zealand was one of the 3 or 4 richest countries in the world back in 1951 and in the 50s and the 60s, and it's all been downhill since then, and woe is us as a country. And that's a negative way of looking at New Zealand's history, but there is an element of truth in the fact that we were a highly prosperous country back in the 50s and the 60s. And the primary reason for that, Mr Speaker, was that we had open access to the UK market, which is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And we lost that in 1973, and we've been out in the wilderness ever since, looking for access to markets to sell our goods. And we're living in a big bad world out there. Nobody has to take our products. Nobody has to receive things that we sell them without putting tariffs on or making life difficult for us. And why do we have to sell our goods? Well, most people would notice that we don't build cars in New Zealand. We don't build TVs or iPhones. So there are things that we import, and in order to pay for them, we need to export. And that's why we have to have access to international markets. And it's not written in stone. There's no rule saying out there that every country should accept New Zealand's goods, and they don't have to. And they make life difficult for us, and they have made life difficult for us over many decades, over the last few years. They've put high tariffs on New Zealand products, and right now New Zealand farmers or producers of all sorts of materials who employ New Zealanders compete against other countries that have tariff-free entry into markets such as Mexico or the United States, and New Zealand producers have to pay tariffs, and so we're at a competitive disadvantage. And that's why it's so important that we continue our efforts to break down those barriers. And so for me, I struggle to understand why any New Zealander would not be fully supportive of the massive, massive progress and breakthrough that we've had with TPP, and the opportunity for New Zealanders to have access to 800 million, better market access to markets with 800 million people there to buy our products. And that will enable us to sell more of our products more effectively, become a wealthier country, and to be able to employ more New Zealanders, whether they're young Maori near the Ratana Pa or New Zealanders from all over the country, and provide them a better opportunity to do well in their lives. And so it's a cause of great celebration. It astonishes me that the Labour Party, the once proud Labour Party, the once free trading Labour Party that Phil Goff represented so well when he was Trade Minister, has now lost its way entirely and doesn't know what it stands for, in my view, and is retreated back. And from the point of view of a New Zealander, it worries me that that the main opposition party has lost its way to that extent. And that consensus that we had in New Zealand about the importance of gaining access as a small country at the bottom of the world, gaining access to international markets, has been undermined under this current leadership. And I just hope and I encourage them to rethink and to get in and support that. I was also pleased to see the Prime Minister's announcements on the huge investments going on and into Auckland, our city where I live and I'm proud to call home. And as every Aucklander knows, the place is booming, it's growing fast, and we have all the challenges of growth that you'd expect. We need to build more roads and transport infrastructure to move people around, and we need to facilitate the more rapid development of housing so that our Aucklanders can afford good housing in their city. And so I was very pleased to hear the Prime Minister advancing the City Rail link, which will be an important part of the overall Auckland transport package. And so at the moment we have a dead end there at Britomart. We now, if we can get that circle going, we can massively increase the throughput in the rail corridor in Auckland, and you can expect over the next 20 or 30 years, as the city continues to grow and continues to be prosperous, that development will cluster along those railway lines, and the city overall will be more efficient. I was also very excited to see the announcement that the East-West link will be advanced, and for those who aren't sure what the East-West link is that it connects the motorway going from State Highway 20 around the Mangere Bridge across to the Southern Motorway, and that again will be a very important basic infrastructure work. The National Party, as the Prime Minister said this morning, is the party that develops the infrastructure for the city. Unfortunately, the Labour Party supporters are the ones that sit in the middle of it and block the traffic like they did last week. And so we're trying to make some progress, and that's important. Look, in terms of the broader atmosphere, I'm not surprised that New Zealanders are feeling confident. We continue to grow well. The New Zealand economy grew 2.3% last year. We look around the world, that's rare, that's good quality performance. We've had annual wage growth in New Zealand. The annual average wage is now $57,000, an increase on $10,000 since we came into power in 2008. And employment is growing rapidly. And so we've got 175,000 extra jobs have been created over the past few years. In my role in the commerce space, the sorts of things I'll be focusing on over this year, which I think are very important for New Zealanders, is we're reviewing the financial advisor space. And New Zealanders have been very strong in the habit of seeing investment in private property and residential real estate as an important way to save, and that's fine and very good. But we should also encourage New Zealanders to invest in financial markets and to broaden their asset base. And KiwiSaver has made good progress in that area over the last few years. But the most important thing we can do as a government is maintain a confidence in the conduct of financial markets in New Zealand so that New Zealanders can feel confident to invest and grow their wealth. And that's why we've had big changes in that area in the last couple of years. And one of the areas that we're looking at very closely this year is the review of financial advisors. At the moment, we do have a system where the average man or woman or on the street looking to invest is having to navigate their way through authorised financial advisors or registered financial advisors or QFEs, and it is a bit confusing. And so we've been out working hard, trying to work out how we can have a system that is easy to understand and enables New Zealanders to get better access to financial advice. And we're working very closely with the industry over the course of the year to get that right, because it is an area which is very complicated, and we want to regulate in the best possible way so that we're facilitating of good advice. The other area that I might just mention briefly is competition law. It's very important for New Zealanders here we are in a small economy, isolated economy at the bottom of the world, to make sure that we have a robust competition regime for the domestic market so we can get access to the best possible prices. And so that's why we've been reviewing Section 36 as part of the Competition Act at the moment, and we'll be looking very closely at that over this year. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.